All right, so welcome to our higher education Tableau user group for January 28th, 2026. We are super excited to have you all with us today. And we are going to have a party, just like the song said, because we've got a great agenda for you today, starting with our welcome and announcements, followed by Meet a Community Member with Dave Baugh from University of Louisville, who is also the HEDW president. And then we have Ken Flerlage from Moxy Analytics, formerly Bucknell University, showing us how to do cool stuff in Tableau with a date dimension. And then I'm going to wrap it all up with 007 Prep Secret Agent and our typical wrap up and chat at the end of the meeting. So before we get started, does anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? We invite you to come off mute or share in the chat if you are not if you're feeling a little shy today. You can share anything that might be of interest to the group, any jobs, any events. So feel free to share those now. No takers? All right, then I'm going to let Sam tell you about some of our first announcement.
So our first announcement is about the beginner level charts challenge provided by the Back to Viz Basics team. Which is a bi-weekly Tableau community project helping those who are newer in the community and just starting out with Tableau. This team has created a guided learning workbook where you'll learn how to build bar, line, scatterplot map, and pie donut charts by following step-by-step instructions. So the instructions are to download the workbook, open the exercise sheet, and then follow along. And then once you're done, publish it to Tableau Public so that you can share it with the Back to Viz Basics team and show them your work. And from what I can tell, there's no deadline to the challenge. So if you're getting started with Tableau, it's a really good opportunity to kind of get those basic chart types mastered, really. Yeah. Yes, and it's great if you have coworkers like Roshni put in the chat, who are just getting started with Tableau.
Yes, so one more week, we will who the contestants of the three finalists will be in the Iron Viz for this upcoming Tableau conference. And we'll also find out all the top 10. And then, of course, as I said, the top three of those will be the finalists. We'll also find out the same who the top student was, because they did a combined Iron Viz challenge this year instead of dividing between students and regular ones. This will stream next week, noon Eastern time. You can watch it on either X or on LinkedIn. And if you want to, you guys can go to Tableau Public now and see the people who participated in this. So if you want to try to guess who those top 5 or top 10 or top 3 would be, so you can go, I said, over on Tableau Public, and I think they have it hash marked, so you can easily find these. I think, and I believe Jean's take over next.
Yep. All right. So we are going to welcome our Meet a Community member for this month, Dave Baugh. I hope I'm not butchering your name when I say that.
You're on a roll.
Okay, good. So Dave is joining us from the University of Louisville and is also the Senior Director of Core IT. He's also the President of HEDW, but his day job is the Senior Director of Core IT Services at the University of Louisville. So he's moved around the university a lot over the years, 38 plus years to be exact. His professional involvement has included HEDW as his fourth organization, and he is a strong believer and a proponent of the professional involvement, just like we are at HETUG. Before we get into the questions, what were the other 3 out of curiosity?
So I have bounced around the university. I've been in just about everything except for healthcare.
Okay.
And so I was involved in Student Center, that was a professional organization. I was involved with PeopleSoft Systems, so 2 groups there, both the higher education user group, and then also I was on the PeopleSoft Financials Customer Advisory Board for about 15 years.
Wow, you have done it all. All right, so you know the drill. We've got a few questions for you, and then we're going to let you spotlight some stuff for us. So start off by telling us a little about yourself and describing your role in your team.
And so currently, as I said, my day job, the job that pays the mortgage, is Senior Director of Core IT Services at the University of Louisville. Currently, that includes the sysadmin functions, the servers, the storage. It also includes data services, which includes not only the DBAs, but also the BI group and also some of the integrations and transformation group. I also am responsible for ERP. And so the student financial and HR systems all report to me. And then also because of that, I do a lot of very tight integrations with security group and then also our other applications. So pretty broad portfolio, but, it keeps me off the street and keeps me out of trouble. So the advantage of this, I have always worked with data regardless of what job I've been in. And so I have worked pretty directly with data for probably over 30 years. I will show my age very briefly when I can say when I first started, we were still using Greenbar. And a few of you on this call may remember what Greenbar is, but yes, I started with Greenbar. And one of the things that I think was always, I enjoy working with data is not only helping people answer questions, but also seeing how far we can extend the data. There's always questions that we may not have an exact answer for, but one of the first people that I worked with at the university who was in our IR shop, had an amazing knack for being able to, maybe not to the accuracy of an IPEDS report, but would be able to infer things from data that might not be directly related to the question. And so that's one of the things that I enjoy doing is, how far can we take it? And sometimes even though I can't give you the exact answer, how close can I get you? And so that's something I always enjoy. The questions about my favorite chart type and my least favorite, I'm going to flip that a little bit because at the end of the day, one of the things, there's two people that I follow professionally that I am a huge fan of. One of those is Cole Knaflick. In fact, I keep her storytelling with data book on my desk. And then also Stephen Wexler, who I have the big book of dashboards also on my desk. And the reason why I think those two are good for me and I think are very important is that I think both of those people do an excellent job of helping us make the most of the data, highlighting it in the way where it's going to be the most effective, challenging us to think differently about visualizations and how we approach it, and not to get too locked into, well, this is because that's always the way we've done it. And one of the things that has always stuck with me when I got to hear Cole speak a number of years ago was, as she said, a lot of people who are in the visualization arena poo-poo pie charts, too basic, all that type of stuff. And she said, there are audiences and data for which that is the right answer. So don't bail on it just because it's a pie chart. And so I think both of them, do a great job of encouraging us to think about the data. What is the data trying to tell us? How do we expose it properly, allow it to achieve its full value? But also, how do we get it to where our audience, whatever that is, regardless of their level of sophistication, internal, external, or whatever, that the audience is capable of consuming and getting the message from the data that it deserves. And so I don't necessarily focus on favorite types or whatever. It's focused on getting the right visualization with the right data. The one thing that I wish I could go back. So I don't know if there's any Ted Lasso fans on here or not, but one of the things that I appreciate, and you can find this on YouTube if you're not a Ted Lasso fan, is the pub scene. And Virginia's laughing, so I assume you're a Ted Lasso fan. Do you remember the pub scene?
I've never seen it.
Oh, okay.
I've heard
Go
about
to
it.
YouTube, Ted Lasso pub scene, because the thing is that what Ted does is very simply surprises someone who thought that they were just going to run over him, and he proved them wrong. And it's all around a saying of be curious, not judgmental. Okay. And I think that's the thing that I would go back and tell my younger self, because I've gotten older. I find a lot of comfort in being curious and not judgmental, because I think if you work with data very long And especially in the current environment where we live in, that things are changing so dramatically and so quickly, if you're not curious, you're going to get left behind. And so I think one of the things that I would encourage people is to be curious, not judgmental. And I think especially as data practitioners, words to live by in both personally and professionally. And then the other thing I would share back to, and this was mentioned earlier, is I am a huge proponent of professional involvement. And really, it's more not just professional involvement, it's community involvement, whether it's personal or professional. Each of us has an opportunity to further our craft, to further our profession, to further our field, and to help others, especially those that are maybe just starting. And I loved your example earlier. And one of the ways we can do that is through our professional organizations. And yes, it is some work and everything, but I can tell you that I can't imagine not being a part of a professional organization. I've always found them to be awesome experiences. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of neat people, and I think it's helped me both personally and professionally. And while I'm at it, I'll call out somebody on here. I see Megal on here. Megal's also on the HEW board, and he's been involved for a while in various organizations, and I think he would tell you the same thing. And so I understand we all have time constraints because it, can take some time, I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, I encourage you to give it a whirl because it is incredibly rewarding and, again, is a small way to give back. And I think that's important for the future of our industry, of our profession, of our craft, and honestly, of our world. And so something that I would encourage people. So HEW. You can go there very easily, and a number of you, I recognize some names, are members. HEW.org. HEW is about 20 years old. For a long time was Higher Education Data Warehousing Forum. Probably about 2 years ago or so, the board started talking about that was kind of dated because we're so much more. And so about a year and a half ago, we changed. We're now Higher Education Data World, but we're still the same fun, inclusive, diverse community that we've always been. And I think one of the things that is unique about HEW, first off, it is vendor agnostic, and that's not to be confused with anti-vendor. We're not anti-vendor. It's just that we basically are there for the data and the people, and then the vendors kind of come along with it. But also too that it is a true community, and as our moniker this year, as you see there for the conference, is one conference, one community, endless connections. Okay. And so for those of you who are not members, again, it is a community of data practitioners, so all are welcome, and you will find that it is a very diverse, both in terms of level in an organization, relationship with data, and also to tool sets. Some that you may have heard of, including Tableau. We have a fairly strong Tableau contingent inside HEW, but also maybe some that you haven't. And through networking, get a chance to maybe kind of look under the hood of some things that maybe you're not aware of before. The beauty of HEW is it's free, and it is open to anyone who is currently a staff person at a higher education institution anywhere in the world. We do have members all over the world. Obviously, most of them are North American, but we have a pretty substantial population in Canada. And again, we have members literally all over the world. And so it's very simple. If you would like to join, we'd love to have you. You can go to HEW.org. There's a link that says join, provide a little bit of information, and usually within 24 hours, we turn it around and you're a member. So one of our highlights is our annual conference. The conference this year is April 26th through the 29th at the AT&T Conference Center at UT Austin. So one of the things that's pretty cool about this is that we are going to have over 50 sessions by people just like you. There are various people across. We had our strongest proposal selection ever. The number of proposals this year, to be honest with you, was a shock. In these uncertain times, we were kind of holding our breath as like, okay, how many submissions are we going to get? We had our largest number and it wasn't even close. So we're very excited. We think we have a very strong program. The other thing too is we have pre-conference training. by two people who are fairly established presenters in the higher education arena. And then also to, like I said, the big thing is for us is the community. It's the endless connections. And so when you look at the schedule, you'll notice there's plenty of time for networking. And a lot of times that's how we really learn from our conferences. There's 5 tracks in the conference. And I hesitate in calling them track because they're more groupings because there's a lot of things that don't fit in a single track. They cross tracks. So the areas that are focus areas, if you will, is BI decision support, data viz, reporting and analytics, data architects and engineering, data organization and culture, emerging technology, data strategy and leadership, and then governance and stewardship. And again, I think if you go in and look, the conference information does include the sessions. You can get a sense of what's there. And even though you're a Tableau focus group, don't pass on the rest of the sessions. I think there's some really interesting sessions and people are showcasing some interesting things that they're doing with data. And then also our keynote presenter is a statistician from the University of Texas. And I think he's going to bring some interesting conversations around, how do we make the most of data even when it's not that clean and maybe fits in our normal model. And so I think there's a lot to get from it. It is a fairly inexpensive conference. Early bird registration is $645. And then that'll go through the first week of March, and then full-blown registration is $795. So we're like everybody else. Our rates continue to go up because the cost continues to go up, but we're still one of the cheapest dates around, so to speak, and I hope you'll give us a look. Okay. So the other thing that I would kind of also kind of talk about is just other things inside HEDW besides the conference. So we typically have pretty much monthly webinars. They cover the gambit of things dealing with data. And those are recorded. And so as a member, you have access to all those. And so that can be helpful sometimes because maybe your boss has shown up and said, oh, by the way, we're now doing X. And you're like, well, that's really nice. I have no experience with X. And so we, maintain a fairly robust library of both the webinars as well as the conference presentations so that when you have those moments or you're looking for something, again, you have access to those. And in most cases, they are video recordings. Again, it's nice to see the PowerPoint slides and everything, but the real value comes in actually hearing the presentation and seeing what people are actually doing. So, and as Megal points out, yes, we do provide breakfast and lunch, and then turn you loose on Austin when it comes to dinner. So,
well, it sounds like an amazing conference
it's
and
good.
an amazing group. I don't know why I've never joined before, but I know exactly what I'm doing after this is over. I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. So you had talked about how beneficial it is to be a part of these professional organizations. And I remember when I was first starting out in institutional research, wanting to not just be attending conferences, but I wanted to be like really participating in professional organizations. I wanted to be on the board, or I wanted to be a volunteer, and I had no idea how to get involved. So what advice would you give somebody who's in that position?
Don't be afraid. Okay, I think there's a lot of hesitation because especially for those of us, I remember when my first professional organization, they came to me. I didn't go to them. I've had a lot of interim positions during my time at the university and had an individual who had to resign suddenly, and I ended up in his job. And I think I had been in the job for maybe about a month, and I got a phone call from this lady that I had never heard of, had never met, and she said, we wanted to make sure you're still hosting this year's conference. Well, when is it, and what does it mean to host, and all that type of stuff. And that ended up being an 8-year career of professional involvement with the organization. So again, I think the big thing is take the plunge. Don't be scared. everybody in that room has been in your spot. Everybody had to start somewhere. And I think you'll find that as you get into organizations, and this is true personally as well as professionally, that if you can get past that first step, you're going to find that the overwhelming majority of people are just like you. They're not going to bite your head off. They're not scary people. And that, everybody has something to add. I think it's also something that I encourage you to present. I know that's also scary. And sometimes, maybe for conferences, you're not able to get funding and that type of stuff. But that's one of the beauties of the webinars is that, number one, it's a little less scary because you're not standing in front of a room of people. But also, too, it doesn't require travel and that type of stuff. And so I think there's a couple of ways to do that. And then offer to volunteer. Usually we have several people that do volunteer at conferences just to help out and begin to meet people. And that's the thing is you go to conferences, one of the biggest values, and I think one of the things that came from the pandemic, because we did virtual conferences for 3 years, was people miss the networking. And again, through all of my professional associations and in various jobs I've had over the years, I have learned probably way more from the person next to me than I've ever learned from Google, a book, or anything else. And so, again, it's an opportunity and make the most of those experiences because the advantage and the true value of organizations like HEW are the community. So, be a part, jump in. You don't have to jump in the deep end, but take a stab at it. And again, I think you'll find that as you get into it, the rewards are immense. Wouldn't trade for the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for being our Meet a Community member this month. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
And if anyone would like to be a Meet a Community member in a future month, just fill out the interest form that Roshni shared in the chat just a moment ago.
So one other thing I would like to talk about, sorry, I didn't bring this up earlier, and this kind of falls into the emerging technology track at the conference. One of the big things we're all trying to figure out is AI. Okay. And this was a fairly large topic at our board meeting this fall. And one of the things that you will find is that regardless whether it's AI or whatever else, the focus of HEW is how do we operationalize it? Because especially with AI, which is a tool, once you get past the ooey, this is cool, da 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 da, at the end of the day, if you're going to make it work and make it valuable, you have to operationalize it. And so I think that's the thing that you're going to see both with pre-conference training with Andre Goodman from Georgia Tech, as well as some of the sessions, is you're going to see some people who are now getting into, okay, great, this is a cool tool, I love using it. How do you operationalize it? Because at the end of the day, you can have all the tools in the world, but if you can't operationalize them, then they're usually not very useful. And so that is something that is part of the conference this year, and it will always be. I mean, our world continues to change. The tools continue to change. I mean, I look at Tableau now and where it was 10 or 15 years ago, there've been a lot of changes. But at the end of the day, the true value comes, can you operationalize that? And I think that is a focus of HEW that sometimes people miss.
Excellent. It sounds like it's going to be a great conference.
Very excited. Looking forward to it.
And I happen to know somebody here at our HETUG is going to be presenting. I'm sure probably more than one.
I'm sure as well. Because like I said, we do have a pretty robust Tableau community. Mm-hmm. And so if you go through the sessions and everything, you'll see Tableau specifically called out in some cases. And again, in different varieties. I mean, I think, the other thing too, we consider ourselves as a very diverse community of data practitioners. And so, again, you're going to see everything from finance to HR to advancement to research to IR to student. It's a very diverse population in terms of the data that people are working with.
Sounds like there's something for everyone.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, and I will turn it over to Roshni next.
All right, thank you so much. So up next, we've got my favorite Flerlage. All right, I don't know what this dinosaur is doing. Hold on. This is what happens when you bring your dinosaur to work. They suddenly decide they want to join the Zooms.
This is Data Dave Flex reporting from the HETUG News headquarters with a very important announcement. Forget about Ken and Kevin. No one cares about the cool stuff they do. Everyone's favorite Flerlage is this piece of hot stuff, Heath. He's so cool that he's got his own Tableau public page. So let's meet Heath.
No, Flex, we're not going to meet Keith today, but I do kind of want to check out his Tableau public profile. So who here, raise your hands, who here has been on Tableau public before? I see Ken raising his hand. I see a few hands up in the chat as well. All right, so not everyone raised their hands, which means that there's a few of you who have never been to Tableau public. So let's check out Keith's profile here. Keith's profile has information about him. Apparently, he's the lead analyst at FlerlageTriplets.com. Fantastic new fact. You can follow him so you can get updates whenever he posts new vizzes. You can hire him. Really? Really? Keith is hireable? And if you are in the job market, you can actually set yourself up to be hired, which is a very quick process. But if you are wanting to hire folks or see someone who has some really great Tableau vizzes and you're in the process of hiring, you can send them a really quick message like this. Ken, should I send Keith a message asking to hire him?
Sure. I don't know where that's going to go.
Well, we're gonna find out. Hi, Keith. I saw you on the HETUG today. You are Flex's favorite Flerlage. Best Roshni. All right, send away. The other things that you can do here are, if there is a viz that you really like, you can heart it, or you can think insightful. This used to be a sad face when they first put this out. It was a little weird. And then this is the whole reason that we started this. If you see a viz in the higher ed space or in the education space and you think it is amazing, and it's out here on Tableau Public, we want you to click on this nominate for VOTD button so that that can kind of get fed up the chain and maybe, just maybe, make it to the viz of the day here on the main Tableau Public page. On this page, you can see, again, viz of the day. You can see a history of them by clicking the See All button. You can see ambassadors. You can see other trending vizzes and all sorts of other cool stuff about the data fam, about visionaries. And maybe someday we'll have our own little industry pop out here. Forget healthcare, forget environment and biodiversity. We want an education one out here at some point in the future. And if you don't have a Tableau Public page, don't worry about it. It's very easy to set one up. We are going, because Keith has one, I have a feeling that Flex is going to be asking me to set up one for him. So we're just going to go ahead and do that right now. Flex, data dev.
You're telling me Flex has an email address at MIT?
Yes, he does, because I set it up last night.
You can do that?
Well, it's an email list. I'm pretty sure that the fact that I just said this means that they're going to be looking at my use of this.
Probably are. Lex is having a hard time typing without opposable.
Oh my God, those little tiny dinosaur hands, they just don't work.
You probably are on a list now, Roshni.
Oh my gosh. All right. Hold on. There we go. Oh my God. Okay, so usually it's easier than this if you're not, being recorded trying to set up an account. But there we go. I've registered. And now, as a person who has Tableau Public, I can download the Tableau Public desktop edition, which means that I can use Tableau with a bunch of CSV files and other non-database files for a bunch of testing, for playing around. If you do have coworkers who do not have a Tableau Public Tableau license, Tableau Public Desktop is a great way for them to get started building the skills without necessarily using actual data. They can use fake data from places like Makaru or real world fake data or any of the challenges that are out there, like the Edgy Visitors Challenge. And then use that to build out visualizations, build out dashboards, learn how to use Tableau, see what other people are doing, try to break down and reverse engineer some of the data visualizations that are out there, and learn from them. Because I know Flex is going to be asking me tomorrow. He's going to be asking me to make him a bubble chart of himself. So that's it. That is Tableau Public. And now let's get back to what we're really here for. Oh yeah, and we're a big fan of this whole do it in public / create in public idea that Tableau Public has. Anyway, sorry for that very unexpected little commercial break. We are back to our regularly scheduled program, and Flex, come on, what are you doing here? That's not the right picture. That's the right picture. We are here for real. Before, as I was saying before, Flex so rudely interrupted with his breaking news. I'm really excited to introduce a man who probably needs no introduction. He's going to get one anyway. We're here to hear from Ken Flerlage. And if you've ever searched the internet for how to do something in Tableau, there's a pretty good chance that you'll find something that helps answer your question at flerlagetwins.com, the blog that Ken shares with his identical twin brother, Kevin. And in case you're interested, the Flerlage Twins website also has its own swag. So you can pick up a t-shirt like this or other great gear. And you may have heard me mention it before, that Ken is my favorite Flerlage, and it's not because Kevin is mean or anything. Kevin is pretty awesome too. Ken's my favorite because he's one of us. He spent a good chunk of his data life in higher ed over at Bucknell. So he kind of knows our use cases. He knows a lot of what happens in higher ed and how different higher ed can be from other types of organizations. Ken's currently a Tableau evangelist and a consultant at Moxy Analytics. He's got over 25 years of experience in IT and data analytics. He's a member of the Visionary Hall of Fame. There's only 30 people who are part of that group. And yes, Kevin's there too. Keith is not, though. Ken's also a Tableau ambassador and has almost 10,000 followers on his Tableau Public. Wait a second. How many does Kevin have?
We don't need to know about that. We don't.
All right.
It's not important.
All right. Well, the screen is now all yours. Ken, take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for that weird introduction. Definitely the weirdest introduction I've ever gotten.
You're welcome.
So if you have ever heard me and Kevin talk, you're probably used to us spending time doing a little bit of nonsense, and then we follow it by this super polished presentation. You're not getting that today. This is not polished at all. Roshni is taking care of all the silliness, so I'm not going to do any of that at all. But I do hope what I'm sharing here is hopeful. So Roshni asked me if I would share just a little bit about using a date dimension in Tableau. It's something I think people don't use it enough. I have a blog that we'll open up here just a moment that I would refer to for some additional information on here. So we're going to talk a little bit about date dimensions over the next 15 to 20 minutes here. Some of you probably already use date dimensions, and if so, great. If not, my goal by the end of this is to sort of convince you to start using them when you're building things in Tableau. They're pretty much a standard in data warehousing and other areas as well. All right, so first of all, I've got some student data here. So some fake student data. It's just my admitted students, when they were admitted, when their intended start date is, and when their intended graduation date is. So I just want to start building some reports or some charts on this. So let's just start with the intended start date. We're going to see the intended start date, and then we're just going to do the count of students. So we see how many of, and of course it created a line chart out of that. So I can see by date how many students are planning to start that day at my university, right? But I might want to show this by term instead, right? So what would you have to do? Well, you probably have to get out your list of the terms and the term start dates and create some big, ugly calculated field. Let's just call this term. We do something like if intended start date is greater than or equal to whatever that date is. Let's say it was January 15th of this year. and intended start date is less than or equal whatever the end of that term is. Let's say it's the 15th of May. Then, oops, I need a pound sign there. Then we'd say, it's spring of 2026, right? And then we need an else if, and we keep doing that for every term, within every year, as far back as we want to look and as far forward as we want to look, right? So it gets really ugly trying to build a calculated field like that. My guess is at some point in your work in higher ed, you've built this calculated field like this. All right, so that's one thing. We're going to come back to that here in a moment. But before we do that, let's talk about fiscal years. So fiscal years are a pain to work with, and pretty much all of higher ed, everyone I ever talked to or worked with has a fiscal year that starts in July, right? So we could, of course, just create a similar table doing year and the count of students by year. But again, if we want to do this showing fiscal year, we have to deal with the fiscal year capabilities of Tableau. So let's right-click this date. We'll go to Default Properties, Fiscal Year Start, and choose July. And now that changes our chart. Every time we use year, it's going to use that fiscal year. That works great when we build this chart. But as soon as we start to want to use this in a calculated field, it gets ugly, right? So let's just create a calculated field. Let's say we just want to put a little asterisk behind 2020 and 2021, indicating, hey, these were special years because of COVID, right? So we might do something like, let's just call this fiscal year calc. And I'll just say, if the year of intended start date is in 2020 and 2021, then we will do string of year and of intended start date, and we'll add the asterisk to that. Else we'll just do the year, right? So let's, hopefully I got that. Oops. That right? All right, good. So let's add this onto our view. And you see things get all kinds of messed up, right? That's because calculated fields don't care about that setting that we've set on there. Calculated fields are only working with the calendar year. So as soon as we start to need to build some logic into a calculated field, this whole thing sort of starts to break down. So this is another case that starts to get really difficult unless we, of course, use a date dimension, which will come around to this. Of course, to fix this, what we might end up doing is creating a calculated field like this. Let's just say fiscal year adjusted, and we are basically just doing some math to sort of add the dates and things like that to get the fiscal year. But now let's introduce this whole concept of a date dimension, right? So a date dimension, I actually have an example one I generated just for student ed here, or just for higher ed, not that. Here's the date dimension. A date dimension basically has a row for every possible date that you might use. So I have this one going back to 2015 and through to 2035, right? And for each of those dates, it just has a bunch of useful information. It has, the year component, the quarter component, the month component, what day of the week it is. Is it a weekend? Is it a weekday? Is it the start of a month, the start of the quarter? We also have fiscal year information in here, right? So I can see what the fiscal year is. I can see what fiscal month that is. That'll be really helpful here in a moment. I can also put things in like the term, right? The term and the year. I can indicate, whether it's a day that one of these is whether it's the day that we have classes. Hang on, it's in here somewhere. There it is. Is class day or is it business day? So if it's a weekend, it's not. Or if it's a holiday, it's not. Something like that, right? We could also even put like other languages in there for those things, so you could have easily, sort of interpret, be able to switch the language on your dashboard, right? So we're going to use this and see how much easier it is to do these two things that we just did a moment ago. So let's edit this data source. I'm going to add in this Excel spreadsheet, this date dimension. Drag this over. I'm going to relate it to that intended start date. intended start date. We're going to relate it to the date and the date dimension. So now every date in my student data has a row with all this additional date information in it. So coming back to our term stuff, if we want to change this to just display term, well, that's just a field in our date in our date dimension, right? So here, term year, I can just drag that in. I don't have to do all that weird stuff with the calculated field. Now, this is a little bit weird because it's showing all this extra stuff that we don't want. We could easily filter that out by just doing a filter on this count of student ID, and just anything that has at least one will automatically get that in there. We'd want to sort this. There are ways to sort this so that it'll sort properly and not alphabetically. Right? So see how easy it is by just bringing in that date dimension, not having to build this whole big calculated field. Same thing with the fiscal date, the fiscal year information. There's a field in here in our date dimension, fiscal year. Let's make this discrete. And all we have to do is bring that in, and it will automatically match whatever, that calculated field was. And then, of course, if we want to do that little asterisk thing that we were doing, all we have to do is use that fiscal year in here. Fiscal year, string of the fiscal year, and string of the fiscal year. And now we get our, and I broke it somehow. I think I got an extra parenthesis in there. And did I not have that in there? Where's my calc? There it is. So now we see it with a little asterisk. So dealing with fiscal periods is so much easier with these date dimensions. I don't know. Sometimes I worked with a company in the past that had a fiscal year that was this 445 thing where basically it didn't even align to months. And dealing with that in Tableau or any sort of tool like this is almost impossible. You have to have a date dimension to deal with something like that. All right, so there's obviously other things that we can do with a date dimension as well. So I've got another data set in here, these terms. So these terms data set just has the basically each of our terms and then the start and the end dates, right? So there might be a case where you just wanted to know within each term how many days of classes are scheduled, right? Well, for something like this, it'd be almost impossible. What would you have to do? You'd have to, for each term, you'd have to somehow determine between those two dates which days were weekends or which days were weekdays, because you're probably going to have classes on those, which of those days are holidays. And then, of course, the holiday schedules are a little bit different for every different university and, different countries and things like that, right? So it would be almost impossible to count up the number of actual class days using something like this. But remember, our date dimension, we had a field in there called I'm going to have to find it again, is class day, right? So it just tells us true or false whether there's a class day. So if we wanted to get for each term the number of class days, it would be pretty easy to do. We could just go to our date dimension. We could drag on our year term fields. There are each of our terms. And we want to know which ones are class days. So we just create a calculated field. Let me just copy this since I've already written it over here. So we just do oops, that's not it. Just do a calculate field that does a count D. If it's a class day, then the date, otherwise nothing, right? So we'll do count of class days. Then we drag that over and we have our count. Super simple. And it's all because we just have that field built into the table. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I wanted to share. I do want to show you, just refer to this blog really quickly here. Let's drag this over. This is the blog. It goes into a lot more detail about it, specifically about what these things are and why we use them. Again, as I said, they're pretty standard in data warehousing. So if you're working with a data warehouse, you probably have this, and it probably already has that term information and lots of this really rich information already available. So it's super easy to get started using it. Before I wrap, I do just want to share kind of a real sort of recap some of the main sort of use cases and why these things are so valuable. We've talked about some of them, but we'll just kind of run through this list of these 5 items that I talked about. One is we eliminate calculated fields. I have this workbook called the Date Calculation Cheat Sheet. Maybe some of you have used it. It has 46 reusable date calculations, just to make, things like, find the last day of the month, right? Or the next day of the next month. We can pretty much eliminate all of these by just building those into a date dimension. And then you never have to write a calculated field using dates again. You just refer to an existing field in there, right? So saves you so much time. And more importantly, it saves you the possibility of making a mistake because you're just using that data that's there. These date dimensions create consistency throughout your environment, across your data sources, across your workbooks, even across different platforms. If you've got, a Power BI in some places and Tableau in other places, both can use that date dimension and get that same sort of consistency. So you always know that you're using that shared calendar, the shared list of holidays, the shared list of, all of that key information at your organization. Simplified date scaffolding. We're not going to talk too much. We're not going to really get into that, but this is really about sort of filling in missing gaps in your data, and a date dimension will allow you to do that quite easily. We can obviously easily deal with our fiscal calendars as we just showed, and then we can deal with things like weekends and holidays, which days are business days, which days are class days, by just flagging those in the date dimension. The beauty of these date dimensions is you build it once, and all you ever have to do, or at least you build that logic once, all you really ever have to do is add future dates as those, every once in a while, every 10 years or something like that, go in there and add additional dates. And that's really all you have to do. You connect to it, you relate to your data, and you've got all this great information available to you. So hopefully, if you're not using these today, I've convinced you to try to start using them. Look to see if they're in your data warehouse, if you have one right now. If not, think about trying to build something. Even if it's just in a spreadsheet or a text file, try to build something to just make your life all that much easier moving forward. And that's all I have for you today.
So Ken, we've got a question for you.
Sure.
The file that you showed in the demo, is that available somewhere?
I could make it available.
That would be awesome, because that's a really great starter for folks who don't have a data warehouse to start using as an Excel file, or to help them work with their data warehouse folks to build something out more programmatically. I saw a bunch of links in the blog post as well that might be helpful for folks as they are trying to implement this.
The one that I've got here, I did generate, I used ChatGPT to generate sort of a higher ed specific one. If you're going to use it in any real work, just take a look at it and make sure it aligns with your stuff. It's got term information in there that you'll want to update to align with your term schedules and things like that. But yes, I will make it available.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that Flex and Keith had some issues today. This is what I get for promising to show Flex the snow. He came out and in 2 minutes he was like, I want to go back in, but we were already on my way to work. So, this is what happens when you let dinosaurs come to the office with you.
I forgive for him.
Right.
I forgive him for being mean to me as well. So
just Flex, but not Keith. Let's just get that straight. Not Keith. Never Keith. Because again, back to the shirt. All right. Thank you so much, Ken. I'm gonna pass it back over to Ginny, or should I say, super secret 007 prep secret agent Ginny.
That's right. And I think you'll understand why it's called 007 prep secret agent after we get into it just a little bit. So I called this license to calculate because if you've ever wondered how to output to a CSV from Tableau Prep and keep your leading zeros, get it? 007. I've got a calc for that. So I don't know about you, but have you ever run into the scenario where you're building in Tableau Prep, you export to a CSV, you need to preserve those leading zeros for something like a zip code, a social security number, or if you're like me, the institution and branch codes for National Student Clearinghouse. And if you have done this, then you generally know what happens. You export to a CSV, they're gone, and you have to do extra editing in Excel to bring them all back. So you can leave those days behind because there's a calc for that. And now today, for your eyes only, we're going to share the secret. So we're going to start in prep, Tableau Prep. We'll start by connecting to our data. I've got this file named format for NSC. And don't worry, it's fake data. I generated it in Moxy. So those are not real social security numbers that you're seeing, except that they're randomly generated and maybe they do match someone somewhere. I don't know. So I don't know, show of hands. Who has had to build a file for National Student Clearinghouse? Yep, I see a few. So if you have ever had to submit a file to National Student Clearinghouse, then you know that they are very specific about the format. You need to have social security number, first name, middle initial, last name, suffix, date of birth, institution code, branch code, ID number, and you have to keep those leading zeros. You have to have your dates formatted year, month, day with no dashes. You have all these specifics that you have to put into the file. And I've wanted for so long to build a Tableau Prep file that did it all for me, so I could just export it and then upload it and not have to worry about doing all that formatting on the back end myself. I can't say that I've gotten it quite perfect yet. I've gotten really close. And on a side note, if you know how to put a T1 on the final row of column A in Tableau Prep and export it with a row count in column B, then hit me up because that's the piece I'm missing. Let's take a look at one trick that I did learn to get my file one step closer to being formatted, and that is a calculation for those leading zeros. All right, so we're going to do this with our institution code right here. I'm using the institution code for Appalachian State, which is 002906, and our branch code is 00. And that, that's not a secret. That's public information. So we're not talking about anything too, top secret here. So I'm going to click on the ... next to my institution code and go to create a custom calculation. If we want to make a calculation, let's think about it first for a minute. Let's think about in Excel how you can put that leading zero on to a field in Excel. There are a few different ways. The first way that I use probably most often is custom formatting, where you just go in and you format a column and you put 6 zeros and then it adds those leading zeros back on. Another way is to add an apostrophe in front of the number and fill it down in the column. And then a third way is to write a calculation to make a number into a text and then format it a certain way. And we're going to lean on that third approach when we write this calculation in Tableau Prep. So we're going to start off with a quote, because in Tableau Prep, we need to tell it that this is a string. And then we're going to put an equal sign and type out the word text. And then we're going to put an open parenthesis followed by another quote and a plus sign. So think through what we're doing here. In our calculation, we're starting with this because the apostrophe and the text will show up as a string in the calculated field when we're done. And then this plus sign in Tableau Prep is the same as an and sign in Excel. So if you were combining like a piece of string and one of the cells in Excel, you would use the and sign. Here we're using a plus sign. All right, so we're going to have text, parenthesis, and then we want to add that institution code. And then after that institution code, we want to add the format. So we're going to hit another plus sign and another apostrophe or quote, and then a comma, and then a double quote. Okay, so I've been using single quotes here to tell Tableau Prep that it's a string, but I'm going to use the double quotes here because it's going to export those into our calculation. And I can't use, at least I don't think I can use another single quote because it will end the string. So then I want to type 6 zeros. 6 zeros because it has to be a 6-digit number. And in this case, it's only 4. It's going to add those 2 leading zeros back in. All right, so we're going to do a close double quote and a close parenthesis, and then a final quote mark. And I'm getting an error message. So let's go down here and see what this error message is saying. Okay, so it's saying that the function plus can't be used with a string and an integer. So this institution code field in my data, because it shows this little hashtag here, it's reading that as a number. So in order to fix it, we'll just have to put an str and wrap it in parentheses to tell Tableau Prep that it's a string. And then we have to add our plus sign back in because it took it away. So now my calculated field is valid. I want to copy this institution code and name this field institution code because I don't want to create a new field. I want to export this just the way it is. And it's just going to warn me that a field with this name already exists, and that's okay. So I'm going to hit apply and close, and then we're going to look at it here in our Tableau Prep field. So equals text, parentheses, 2906, comma, in quotations, 6 zeros, close parenthesis. So it looks to me like a calculated field that we would write in Excel, and that is what we want it to look like. So we're going to do this one more time with the branch code. We're going to go a little bit faster this time. So again, we'll start with our quotation mark, equal sign, the word text, and then our open parenthesis and another quote, plus the string of our branch code. And then we're going to put another plus, and then a quote, comma, quotation, and this is only 2 zeros, close quotation, close parenthesis, quote. And we're going to copy this, name it branch code, ignore our warning, hit apply, and we'll just look one more time to make sure, okay, this looks like the right calculation. But now we have to test it out and see, does it actually work when you export this to the CSV? So we're going to add an output, and I'm going to put this in our HETUG January folder. I'm going to change it from a hyperfile to a CSV, run the flow, and now we're going to go and open this and see if it worked. And what do you know? Right here in column H, we have our institution code 002906. It maintained those leading zeros, and our branch code right next to it, a double zero. And if I click into the cell, you can see that exactly what it had in our Tableau Prep flow is what is exported into the cell in our CSV file. So it has that same calculation, equals text, and then the 2906 and the 6 zeros. For the branch code, it has the same thing, equals text, 0, comma, double zero. So it's telling it, this is a text field, and this is how many new characters need to be in the text field. So it fills in those leading zeros for you. So, success. And I see there are still a lot of things that we could do here. We could have formatted the social security number to be 9 digits. We could have gone through and formatted the date of birth correctly. We could have checked the number of characters in the names. And all those are parts of what you need to do when you are getting a file formatted for National Student Clearinghouse. However, that we don't have time for that today, so we'll save it for another session another day. And that is all I have for you today.
I'm going to pass this over to Sam. Are you there? Calling Agent Sam.
I'm here, but mine's not as secretive. And yes, I'm really glad I don't have any leading zeros in my IDs now, because that was the most annoying problem. Yeah. But thank you, Ginny. So I was very curious about what we did last year as a TUG. And so I went and pulled some numbers from both our user group channel and our Slack page. So last year we had 14 TUG events, including some collaborated events with other TUGs, so like the CCC TUG. And then we had over 1,700 unique people come to our TUG meetings last year, so that was awesome. We got 420 new members in our user group channel page. And then 268 people that attended last year attended for the very first time. So thank you, everybody that came to a 2025 meeting last year. And then in Slack, we had over 3,100 total members, and we got 171 new members with 138 people being active each month. So thank you so much, everybody, for engaging with us both in the user group meetings and on the Slack channels. The top Slack channel, I didn't put it on this slide, but the top Slack channel was the general one with 551 messages sent in it last year. So that's pretty impressive. But yeah, that's just a quick 2025 recap.
Well, let's start out
Yeah,
2026. Yeah, let's start it out on a good note. I hope, that you all enjoyed today's meeting. If you did, or if you didn't, please let us know regardless. Posting a feedback form in the chat. And we're not done. We're just kicking off 2026. So our next TUG meeting is 4 weeks from today. And yes, we finally got the dates right. We'll be meeting Chris Williams, who's a Tableau ambassador and TUG leader and highly involved in teaching students how to use Tableau Next and AI. He's also just an amazing person. We will have Baron Wolf and Andrea Christel from REACH, which I cannot remember the meaning of the acronym for, but they're going to be talking about another upcoming conference, the Research Analytics Summit. And then we have Becker Baruch from the University of Texas at Austin. In December, we saw a couple of Becker's teammates present on their style guide. Becker is going to present on process with building analytics products in complex domains. And just a quick note on this presentation, it's similar to one that he did at last year's HEDW. So we're going to hear how things have changed, perhaps, since then, but we're also just going to get to see the conference talk live and ask questions and all of that good stuff. And we do have slots for presenting, for being a Meet a Community member, for presenting longer presentations, as well as tips and tricks, like short tips and tricks like Ginny just did, for most of the rest of the year. So if you're interested in presenting, even if it's just a quick 5-minute tip, please let us know. We just posted the URL in the chat. And we're not done, and neither are the other TUGs in the area. So the Analytics TUG is having their first, I think it's their first meeting of the year tomorrow. And Chris Williams, who I just mentioned, he's going to be talking about LODs. We're going to hear about map layers, and Doc Kevin Elder. Unfortunately, I can't remember who's doing map layers, but Doc Kevin Elder is there to talk about accessibility as well. And Doc is with the University Teaching and Learning TUG. We'll hear about them in a second as well. The CCC TUG is having their February meeting on February 13th. I imagine it's going to be Valentine's Day themed, given the Labor Market of Love moniker on there. And in March, all of the education TUGs are going on spring break with the Tableau Public TUG. It's going to be a wild party. We hope to see all of you there. So the Tableau Public TUG, the California Community Colleges TUG, the Higher Education TUG, the K through 12 TUG, and the University Teaching and Learning TUG are all co-hosting a session. We'll have Jeff Schaefer from the Big Book of Dashboards, Chart Chat, and Dashboards That Deliver. We're going to have a couple of the day highlights from the education space, one from Dennis and one in the K through 12 sector, which again, I'm really bad at taking notes, man. I should have prepared a little bit more. I'm going to blame Flex. He's my out today. But we hope that you can make these events. And then it's not just the tugs. We've got conferences. So we mentioned the Research Analytics Summit. We've mentioned HEDW, and we also mentioned Tableau Conference. So, oops, and just a heads up, Sam put this in the chat, but the February CCC Tug meeting is actually on February 11th, not the 13th. But these conferences are all coming up. Most of them, I believe, have a make the case letter or information to help you make the case to your manager if you do want to go, or if, to see the cool content, and as Dave talked about earlier, make those connections with other folks in the higher ed and Tableau spaces. And with that, we want to thank you for what we hope will be an amazing new year. For those of you who are buried in snow and ice and cold, it'll be over soon, I hope. Thank you all for coming. Thanks to Ken and Dave for joining us today as well. And we hope to see you again next time, and to catch you on the Higher Ed Tableau Slack. Have a great day.